The bedroom was a tomb of silence, save for the faint hum of the ceiling fan slicing through the dark. I woke to the weight of his lips on mine, soft and desperate, like a man drowning in a memory he could no longer name. For a moment, I forgot the years that had carved canyons between us, forgot the man I'd become in a marriage that felt like a sentence. My name is Ethan Carter, and I'm 38, staring down the barrel of a life I didn't choose. 12 years ago, I married Daniel because I loved him, because his laughter used to light up rooms, because his touch felt like home. Now, we're strangers sharing a mortgage in a sleepy Virginia suburb, our days stitched together by routine and resentment. That kiss, though, at 3 a.m., in our two-big bed, cracked something open. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a question, a plea, a ghost of the man I'd fallen for. Why now? Why after years of cold shoulders and clipped words? I didn't kiss him back. I lay there, frozen, my heart hammering as he pulled away, his eyes searching mine in the dim glow of the streetlight seeping through the blinds. "Ethan," he whispered, voice raw, "I'm still here." But he wasn't, not really. The Daniel I knew had vanished somewhere between late-night arguments and the slow bleed of disappointment. We'd built this life together, a charming two-story house in Arlington, careers that paid the bills, him as a high school history teacher, him as a graphic designer with a corner office. On paper, we were perfect. In reality, we were a photograph faded at the edges. That morning, I slipped out of bed before he woke, the ghost of his kiss burning my lips. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker as it gurgled, replaying the last decade. We'd met at a dive bar in D.C. back when I was a grad student, and he was a broke artist with paint-stained jeans and dreams too big for his wallet. He'd made me laugh until my sides ached, and when he kissed me that first time under a flickering street lamp, I swore I'd never love anyone else. But love, I learned, doesn't survive on promises alone. The first cracks appeared 5 years in. Daniel's career took off, and mine stagnated. He started working late, his texts growing shorter, his smiles rarer. I threw myself into my students, into lesson plans and grading papers, but it wasn't enough to fill the growing void. We stopped talking about our days, our dreams, our fears. We stopped talking, period. By year 8, we were roommates, polite but distant, our wedding vows a distant echo. I'd catch him staring at me sometimes, his eyes heavy with something I couldn't read, guilt, maybe, or regret. I stopped trying to decipher it. But that kiss, it was a spark in a house full of ash. I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wanted to shake him awake, demand answers. Why now? What changed? The other part, the part that still remembered the boy who danced with me in our tiny apartment to a scratchy vinyl record, wanted to believe it meant something. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, slow and deliberate, like he was carrying the weight of the world. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his dark hair mussed, his t-shirt wrinkled. "Ethan," he said, voice low, "we need to talk." I gripped my coffee mug, the ceramic hot against my palms. "About what?" I asked, though I knew. The air between us was thick with everything we hadn't said for years. "About us," he said, stepping closer. His eyes, those hazel eyes I used to drown in, were pleading now. "I don't want to keep pretending." Pretending what? My voice was sharper than I meant, but I couldn't help it. That we're happy. That we're still in love. Because we haven't been. Daniel. Not for a long time. He flinched, but he didn't look away. "I know," he said softly. "And that's my fault." I stared at him, the coffee forgotten. "My fault," he'd said. "Not ours." His. The admission hung there, raw and exposed, and I didn't know whether to grab it or run from it. I don't know how we got here, he continued, his voice breaking. But I woke up last night, and I saw you sleeping. And, God, Ethan, I realized I'm losing you. I've been losing you for years, and I didn't do anything to stop it. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the man standing in front of me was the same one who'd promised forever. But trust is a fragile thing, and ours had been shattered long ago. What do you want, Daniel? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? He took a step closer, close enough that I could smell the familiar cedarwood of his cologne. I want us back, he said. I want to try. The words hit like a punch. Try. After all this time, after all the silence, he wanted to try? I didn't know if I had it in me to believe him, but the way he looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored made it impossible to walk away. The kitchen clock ticked too loudly, each second a reminder of the chasm between us. I set my coffee mug down, the clink against the counter sounding like a gavel. Daniel's words, I want us back, echoed in my head, but they felt like a foreign language, one I'd forgotten how to speak. Try? I repeated, my voice tight. You think we can just try? After everything. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit that hadn't changed in 12 years. I know it's not that simple, Ethan. I know I've screwed up, but I'm standing here, asking you to give me a chance to fix it. Fix what? I snapped, the anger I'd buried for years clawing its way out. The nights you didn't come home. The months we didn't touch. The fact that I don't even know who you are anymore. He looked like I'd slapped him, but I couldn't stop. You kissed me last night like it could erase all that. Like one moment could undo a decade of nothing. Daniel's shoulders sagged, but his eyes didn't leave mine. I don't expect it to erase anything, he said quietly. I couldn't keep pretending I don't love you. The word love landed like a stone in my chest. I wanted to scream that love doesn't survive on scraps, that it doesn't live in silence. But the way he said it, the way his voice cracked, made me pause. I saw the boy I'd met at that dive bar, the one who'd sketched my face on a napkin and called it art. Was he still in there? Somewhere. I turned away, staring out the kitchen window at the backyard where we'd once planned to plant a garden. The soil was still bare, another promise we'd let die. I don't know if I can do this, Daniel, I said finally. I don't know if I have anything left to give. He stepped closer, his presence warm behind me. Then let me start. Let me show you I mean it. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Instead, I grabbed my keys and left for work, the weight of his words trailing me like a shadow. At school, my students were a welcome distraction. Teaching history to a room full of teenagers was like herding cats, but it grounded me. I could lose myself in lectures about the Civil War, in their questions about battles and betrayals. But today, my mind kept drifting back to Daniel. To that kiss. To the man I'd loved so fiercely I'd thought it would last forever. By lunch, I was a mess, hiding in my classroom with a sandwich I didn't eat. My phone buzzed a text from Daniel. Can we have dinner tonight? Just us. I'll cook. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Dinner. It sounded so normal, so mundane, but it felt like a battlefield. I typed back, okay. One word, but it felt like signing a contract. That evening, I came home to the smell of garlic and rosemary, Daniel's attempt at his mother's lasagna recipe. The dining room table, usually buried under mail and clutter, was set with our old wedding china, the plates we hadn't touched in years. He'd even lit candles, their flickering light softening the room's edges. You didn't have to do all this, I said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. I wanted to, he replied, pulling out a chair for me. I want to start somewhere. We ate in near silence, the clink of forks louder than our words. But halfway through, he set his fork down and looked at me. I've been seeing a therapist, he said, the admission catching me off guard. For 6 months. I didn't tell you because I didn't know if it would matter. I blinked, my lasagna untouched. A therapist? Why? Because I was drowning, he said, his voice raw. I was losing you, and I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. I didn't know what to say. Therapy was a word we'd thrown around before, usually in arguments, but he'd actually done it. Alone. What did you figure out? I asked, my voice softer now. That I've been running, he said. From you. From us. From myself. I thought if I kept busy, kept working, I could outrun the fact that I was failing you. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling in. And now? Now I want to stop running, he said. I want to fight for us. The candles flickered, casting shadows across his face. I wanted to believe him, but belief was a muscle I hadn't used in years. Still, I nodded, a small gesture that felt like a leap. Okay, I said. Let's try. Trying was harder than I'd imagined. It wasn't just dinners or candles or promise, it was excavating years of hurt, pulling up roots that had grown deep in our silence. Daniel was earnest. I'd give him that. He left notes on the fridge, small things like have a good day or thinking of you, written in his careful handwriting. He'd ask about my classes, listen when I rambled about a student's essay or a new museum exhibit. But every gesture felt like a tightrope, and I was terrified of falling. A week after the lasagna dinner, he suggested a walk in the park near our house, the one where we'd spent Sundays early in our marriage, feeding ducks and stealing kisses behind oak trees. I agreed, mostly because I didn't know how to say no. The park was crisp with autumn, leaves crunching under our boots, the air sharp with the promise of winter. Do you remember the first time we came here? Daniel asked, his hands shoved in his jacket pockets. I nodded, my breath visible in the cold. You tried to chase a duck and fell in the pond. He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in so long it startled me. I thought I'd impress you with my athleticism. You impressed me with your ability to smell like pond water for a week, I said, and for a moment, we were us again, two idiots in love, laughing at nothing. But the moment passed, and the weight returned. We walked in silence, the distance between us more than the foot of space separating our shoulders. I wanted to ask him why he'd pulled away all those years ago, what I'd done to make him stop loving me. But the words stuck in my throat, heavy and sharp. Instead, he spoke first. I was scared, he said, staring at the ground. When my career took off, I felt like I had to keep proving myself. To you, to my boss, to everyone. I thought if I slowed down, I'd lose it all. Lose what? I asked, stopping to face him. You, he said simply. I thought if I wasn't successful, if I wasn't enough, you'd leave. I stared at him, the words sinking in. Daniel, I never cared about your job. I cared about you. I know that now, he said, his voice thick. But back then, I was so caught up in my own head, I couldn't see it. I pushed you away because I was afraid you'd walk away first. The confession hit like a wave, pulling me under. All this time, I'd thought he'd stopped loving me. But he'd been running from his own fears, leaving me to drown in mine. I didn't know, I said finally, my voice barely audible. You never told me. I'm telling you now, he said, stepping closer. And I'll keep telling you, if you'll let me. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded, and we kept walking. The park felt different now, less like a memory and more like a possibility. Back home, Daniel suggested we go through old photos, something we hadn't done in years. We sat on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes we'd shoved in the attic after our last move. There we were, younger and brighter, grinning at the camera on our wedding day, arms around each other at a pride parade, kissing under a 4th of July sky. Each photo was a stab, a reminder of what we'd lost and what we might still have. Look at this one, Daniel said, holding up a Polaroid of us at a beach in Delaware. Sand in our hair, sunburn on our cheeks. You hated the ocean, but you went in anyway because I begged you. I went in because I loved you, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He looked at me, his eyes soft. Past tense. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I picked up another photo, one of us dancing in our old apartment, Daniel's arms around my waist, my head on his shoulder. I wanted to crawl back into that moment, to live in it forever. That night, as we lay in bed, Daniel reached for my hand. I let him take it, his fingers warm against mine. It wasn't a kiss, wasn't a grand gesture, but it was something. A start. The weeks that followed were a fragile dance. Daniel was really trying. He'd cook breakfast on weekends, pancakes with too much syrup, the way I liked them. He'd text me during the day, random things like a photo of a dog he saw on his commute or a line from a song we used to sing together. Each gesture chipped away at the wall I'd built, but I was still guarding my heart, waiting for the other shoe to drop. One evening, he came home with a flyer for a local LGBTQ+ support group. I thought we could go, he said, setting it on the counter. Together. I stared at the flyer, a simple piece of paper with rainbow text promising community and understanding. Why? I asked, my voice cautious. Because we're not the only ones who've struggled, he said. And maybe hearing other people's stories will help us figure out ours. I wasn't sure I wanted to air our dirty laundry in front of strangers, but the earnestness in his eyes made me agree. The group met in a community center in D.C. A cozy room with mismatched chairs and a coffee maker that smelled like burnt dreams. There were about a dozen people, a mix of ages and backgrounds, all carrying their own stories of love and loss. When it was our turn to share, Daniel went first. I'm Daniel, and this is my husband, Ethan, he said, his hand resting lightly on my knee. We've been married for 12 years, and we lost our way. I lost my way. I'm here because I want to find it again. The room was quiet, but not judgmental. I felt exposed, raw, but I spoke anyway. I'm Ethan, I said, my voice unsteady. I don't know if we can fix what's broken, but I'm here because I want to try. The group nodded, some offering small smiles, others sharing their own stories of fractured relationships and hard-won reconciliations. One couple, 2 women in their 50s, talked about how they'd nearly divorced after a betrayal, but found their way back through therapy and honesty. Their words stuck with me, a flicker of hope in the dark. On the drive home, Daniel was quiet, his hands tight on the steering wheel. What did you think? He asked finally. It was real, I said. Hearing other people's stories made me feel less alone. He glanced at me, a small smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, me too. That night, we talked more than we had in years. Not about the big things, not yet, but about small moments, memories of our early days. Like the time we got lost on a road trip and ended up at a diner with the best pie we'd ever tasted. It felt like peeling back layers, rediscovering the people we'd been before life got in the way. But not every moment was progress. Some days, the old resentments bubbled up. One night, I found an email on Daniel's laptop, not meant for me to see, from a coworker named Alex. It was innocuous enough, a thank you for a project, but the tone was warm, familiar, and it twisted something in my gut. Was this why he'd pulled away? Was there someone else? I confronted him, my voice sharp. Who's Alex? Daniel's face fell. He's just a coworker. Ethan. That's all. Then why does it feel like more? I shot back, the old insecurities roaring to life. Because you're looking for a reason not to trust me, he said, his voice rising. I'm trying, Ethan. I'm doing everything I can, and you're still waiting for me to screw up. Maybe because you did, I said, the words cutting deeper than I meant. He stared at me, hurt flashing across his face. I'm not perfect, he said quietly. But I'm here. I'm choosing you. I wanted to believe him, but doubt was a stubborn thing. Still, I nodded, and we went to bed, the space between us wider than the mattress. The fight about Alex lingered like smoke, curling into every corner of our days. I couldn't shake the image of Daniel laughing with someone else, sharing parts of himself he'd kept from me. But he didn't pull away. If anything, he doubled down, leaving voicemails when I stayed late at school, asking about my day with a patience I didn't deserve. One Saturday, he suggested we visit his sister, Lila, in Baltimore. Lila was the only family member who'd embraced us from the start. Her tiny row house a haven during our early years when Daniel's parents cut him off for being gay. I hadn't seen her in over a year, our visits dwindling as our marriage did. The drive was quiet, the Maryland countryside blurring past. Lila greeted us with hugs and a spread of homemade chili and cornbread, her warmth a stark contrast to the tension between us. Over dinner, she didn't pry, but her eyes missed nothing. Later, while Daniel helped with dishes, Lila pulled me aside. What's going on with you two? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. I hesitated, then spilled it all: the kiss, the fights, the fragile hope. She listened, her face soft but serious. Ethan, he's trying, she said. I've seen him at his worst, and this isn't it. He loves you. Always has. Then why did he let us fall apart? I asked, my voice breaking. She sighed, setting her tea down. Because he's human. And so are you. Love's messy, Ethan. It's not a straight line. Her words stayed with me, a quiet challenge. On the drive home, I reached for Daniel's hand, a small gesture that felt monumental. He squeezed back, and for the first time in years, I felt the stirrings of hope. Back in Arlington, we started couples therapy, something the support group had recommended. Our therapist, Dr. Gwen, was a no-nonsense woman with a knack for cutting through our defenses. In our first session, she asked us to write down what we wanted from our marriage. I wrote, to feel like I matter. Daniel wrote, to make Ethan happy again. Reading his words broke something in me. I'd spent so long feeling invisible. I hadn't realized he was hurting too. Dr. Gwen pushed us to dig deeper, to confront the things we'd buried. Daniel admitted he'd felt unworthy, his success a flimsy shield against his fear of losing me. I admitted I'd stopped fighting for us, letting resentment build a wall I didn't know how to tear down. Therapy wasn't a cure, but it was a map. We started small date nights, walks, moments of honesty. One night, Daniel pulled out his old sketchbook, showing me drawings he'd done of me over the years. Some were recent, done in secret when I was grading papers or reading. I never stopped seeing you, he said, his voice thick. I cried then, the kind of ugly sobs that leave you raw. He held me, and for the first time in years, I didn't pull away. But progress was uneven. One evening, I overheard Daniel on the phone, his voice low and urgent. I can't do this anymore, he said, and my heart stopped. Was he giving up? Was this the end? I confronted him after he hung up. Who were you talking to? He looked startled, then sighed. My boss. I told him I'm cutting back my hours. I've been working too much. Ethan. It's been killing us. Relief flooded me, but so did guilt. I'd assumed the worst. Again. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to be sure, he said. I'm trying to show you I'm all in. I nodded, the weight of his efforts settling in. He was fighting for us, harder than I'd realized. And maybe, just maybe, I could fight too. Winter settled over Arlington, blanketing our street in snow and forcing us indoors. The house, once a prison of silence, started to feel alive again. Daniel's reduced hours meant he was home more, his presence a steady rhythm I was learning to trust. We'd cook together, bicker over spices, laugh when the smoke alarm went off. Small moments, but they were stitching us back together. One night, he suggested we renew our vows. Not now, he said quickly, seeing my panic. But someday, when we're ready. The idea terrified me. Vows were promises, and we'd broken them once. But it also sparked something hope. Maybe, or the ghost of the love we'd had. Someday, I said, and he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Therapy continued to peel back layers. Dr. Gwen had us talk about our fears, the ones we'd never voiced. I admitted I was afraid of being hurt again, of opening my heart only to watch it break. Daniel confessed he was terrified of failing me, of not being enough. I look at you sometimes, he said, and I'm scared you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve better. You are better, I said, the words surprising me. You're trying. That's enough. It wasn't perfect. Some days, I'd catch myself waiting for him to slip, to retreat into the cold distance I knew so well. Other days, he'd get frustrated when I held back, my trust still a work in progress. But we kept going, showing up for each other in ways we hadn't in years. One evening, we attended a fundraiser for the LGBTQ+ Center, a black tie event filled with laughter and music. Daniel looked sharp in a navy suit, his hair tamed for once. I caught him watching me across the room, his eyes warm, and for a moment, I felt like the only person there. We danced, his hand steady on my waist, the music slow and soulful. I missed this, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. Me too, I admitted, and I meant it. But the past wasn't done with us. At the fundraiser, I saw Alex, Daniel's coworker, across the room. He was charming, younger than us, with an easy smile that made my stomach twist. Daniel introduced us, his tone casual, but I saw the flicker of worry in his eyes. Nice to meet you, Alex said, shaking my hand. Daniel talks about you all the time. I forced a smile, but doubt crept in. Was this the person Daniel had turned to when we were falling apart? Was he still turning to him? That night, I couldn't sleep, the old insecurities clawing at me. Daniel noticed, rolling over to face me. What's wrong? Alex, I said, the name heavy on my tongue. Is there something you're not telling me? He sighed, propping himself up on one elbow. Ethan, I swear, there's nothing. Alex is a friend. Nothing more. I've been open with you about everything. I wanted to believe him, but trust was still a tightrope. I'm trying, I said finally. But it's hard. I know, he said, taking my hand. And I'll keep proving it to you, as long as it takes. The next day, he invited Alex over for dinner, a bold move that caught me off guard. Alex was kind, funny, and utterly uninterested in Daniel romantically, spent half the night talking about his boyfriend in Chicago. Relief washed over me, and with it, a pang of guilt for doubting Daniel. I told you, Daniel said later, a teasing smile on his lips. You're stuck with me. I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. Maybe we were finding our way back, one shaky step at a time. Spring came, and with it, a tentative warmth. Our backyard, once a barren reminder of broken promises, bloomed with the flowers we'd finally planted together, tulips and daisies, their colors bright against the green. Daniel and I were blooming too, slowly, like the garden we'd neglected for so long. We started planning a trip, something we hadn't done in years. A week in Provincetown, a place we'd dreamed of visiting when we were younger, full of art and freedom and love. The idea felt reckless, extravagant, but Daniel insisted. We need this, he said. We need to remember who we are together. Planning the trip brought us closer. We'd sit on the couch, laptops open, laughing over reviews of quirky B&Bs and debating which restaurants to try. It felt like dating again, like rediscovering the spark that had drawn us together. But life doesn't let you rebuild without testing the foundation. One afternoon, I got a call from my mother, her voice tight with worry. My father was in the hospital, a heart attack. Not fatal, but serious. Daniel dropped everything to drive me to Richmond, his hand on my knee the whole way. At the hospital, my father was pale but stable, his gruff demeanor softened by pain. He'd never fully accepted my marriage, his love for me tangled with his discomfort. But when Daniel walked in, carrying coffee and a quiet strength, my father nodded at him, a small gesture that felt like a truce. Later, as we sat in the waiting room, Daniel took my hand. I'm here, he said simply, and I believed him. The scare with my father forced me to confront my own regrets. I'd spent so long guarding my heart. I'd forgotten how to live with it open. That night, back in our hotel room, I told Daniel I loved him, words I hadn't said in years. He froze, his eyes wide. Say it again, he whispered. I love you, I said, my voice steady this time. He kissed me, slow and deep, like that night months ago when he'd woken me with a kiss. But this time, I kissed him back, pouring everything into it: hope, fear, forgiveness. When we returned home, we kept building. We hosted a barbecue for friends, the house filled with laughter and music, the way it used to be. Lila came, her eyes bright as she watched us move around each other with ease. You're getting there, she whispered to me, and I nodded, feeling the truth of it. But not every moment was easy. Therapy unearthed old wounds, times I'd felt abandoned, times Daniel had felt unseen. We fought, sometimes loudly, but we didn't walk away. We stayed, talking through the pain, learning to listen. One evening, Daniel pulled out a box from under the bed. Inside was a scrapbook he'd been working on, filled with mementos from our life together, ticket stubs, photos, notes we'd written each other. The last page had a new photo, taken at the fundraiser, us dancing, our faces lit with something like joy. I want us to keep adding to this, he said. I want a lifetime of pages with you. Tears stung my eyes as I traced the photo with my finger. Me too, I said, and for the first time, I believed we could. Provincetown was everything we'd hoped for. The air smelled of salt and freedom, the streets alive with color and laughter. We walked hand in hand, no longer afraid of who might see, no longer carrying the weight of years unspoken. We were Ethan and Daniel, two men who'd fought their way back to each other. Our days were filled with small adventures, browsing art galleries, eating lobster rolls by the water, dancing at a bar where the music pulsed through us. One night, under a sky full of stars, Daniel pulled me close on the beach, his arms steady around me. "I want to renew our vows here," he said. "Not now, but soon, when we're ready." I nodded, my throat tight. "Soon," I agreed. Back home, we didn't fall back into old patterns. We kept showing up for therapy, for each other, for the life we were rebuilding. It wasn't perfect. There were days when doubt crept in, when the scars of our past ached. But we faced them together, our hands clasped, our hearts open. One Sunday, we hosted a small gathering at the community center, a celebration of our journey. The room was filled with faces from the support group, friends who'd watched us falter and rise. Lila gave a toast, her voice thick with emotion. "To Ethan and Daniel," she said, raising her glass, "for proving love can survive anything." As the room cheered, Daniel leaned over and kissed me, soft and sure, like that night a year ago when he'd woken me with a kiss. This time, I kissed him back, my heart full. Our marriage wasn't fixed, not in the way a broken vase is glued back together. It was stronger, remade with intention, with honesty, with love that had been tested and endured. We'd learned that love isn't a feeling, Alan, it's a choice, a fight, a promise kept even when it hurts. That night, as we lay in bed, Daniel traced circles on my palm. "I'm glad you didn't give up on me," he whispered. "I'm glad you didn't give up on us," I said, and I meant it. The years ahead wouldn't be easy. Life never is. But we'd face them together, two men who'd found their way back to love. One kiss, one fight, one moment at a time.